In 2013, the world was stunned by the astonishing survival story of tugboat chef Harrison O'Keene. O'Keene's day began like any other, preparing meals for his colleagues on board. But as the weather turned stormy, disaster struck when the tugboat overturned and started rapidly filling with water, plummeting 30 feet to the depths of the ocean. O'Keene was found 3 days later at the bottom of the sea, and somehow, miraculously, he was still alive. This is the incredible true story of one man's struggle to survive against the odds, and the strength of the faith that got him through it. Before we start, smash the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any news stories. Harrison O'Keene, a cook from Warri, Nigeria, led a simple life working aboard the tugboat Jackson 4. His duties included preparing meals for his fellow crew members as they navigated the Atlantic Ocean. In May 2013, a routine day at sea turned into a nightmare. The Jackson 4 was part of a fleet towing an oil rig back to land. Tugboats often encounter rough waters, but this particular storm proved catastrophic. Around 5 a.m., O'Keene was in the bathroom when disaster struck. A powerful wave hit the vessel, and within moments, the tugboat began sinking rapidly. "I was on the toilet when the vessel just started going down," O'Keene recalled. The speed of the descent left no time to react. Fighting his way out of the bathroom, he saw crew members attempting to reach the emergency exit hatch. Before they could escape, a surge of water swept through the ship, carrying 3 men into the ocean's depths. Helplessly, O'Keene watched his colleagues vanish into the darkness. Amid the chaos, another wave swept O'Keene away. Instead of being pulled out to sea, he was forced into another passageway. Moments later, the vessel crashed onto the seabed, more than 30 meters below the surface. O'Keene found himself in a small air pocket inside another bathroom. Miraculously, he was still breathing. The reality of his situation dawned on him. He was alone, surrounded by darkness, cold water, and the looming threat of suffocation. "I was crying and calling on Jesus to rescue me," he said. Hungry, thirsty, and terrified, he clung to hope. O'Keene's survival instincts kicked in. He climbed onto an overturned wash basin to keep his head above the steadily rising water. Knowing he needed more height, he summoned the courage to leave the bathroom and explore the adjacent cabin. There, he found pieces of wall paneling, which he used to construct a makeshift raft. The raft allowed him to stay out of the icy water and conserve energy. Preserving oxygen became his next challenge. Every breath mattered, and O'Keene focused on staying as still as possible to avoid depleting the limited air in his pocket. He regulated his breathing, alternating between prayer and sheer determination. With nothing else to do, O'Keene waited, holding on to the hope of a miracle. At such depths, low oxygen levels are quickly replaced by nitrogen, which could lead to poisoning. Experts believe that nitrogen poisoning causes disorientation, panic, and ultimately death. Lost and freezing in total darkness, O'Keene clung desperately to life. "I was there in the water in total darkness, thinking it's the end," he recalled. The salt water had stripped the skin off his tongue, and he was ravenously hungry and thirsty. His only solace was a small bottle of Coke he managed to find. Despite his dire circumstances, O'Keene relied on his unwavering faith in God. A devout Christian, he prayed continuously and recited a psalm his wife had sent him. His hope for a miracle kept him going as he thought of his wife, Akpovona, and their plans to start a family. Reflecting on his life and blessings gave him the strength to hold on. 60 hours passed, and O'Keene remained alive at the ocean floor. Suddenly, he heard a faint sound, hammering on the vessel's deck. "Boom, boom, boom," he recalled. Unsure if it was real or imagined, he acted swiftly. Finding a water filter, he began hammering on the walls, hoping someone would hear him. O'Keene's desperate cries for help coincided with a rescue team's search for bodies in the wreckage. Divers had already recovered 4 bodies and were concluding their mission when they heard faint hammering. Stunned by the sound, they ventured deeper into the murky wreck, illuminating the pitch-black interior with their headlamps. As the divers swept through the corridors, he could see the light from one of their head torches passing him. O'Keene was desperate to attract his attention, but he was so exhausted he could barely lift his arms. Miraculously, for some unknown reason, the diver returned to the same spot. O'Keene was more terrified now than ever before. He knew he had to muster all his strength and not let this moment go by. But at the same time, he was worried that any sudden movement might startle the divers so much that they could mistake him for a predator and attack him. O'Keen forced himself to stay still, careful and not alarm any of the search team. But then he gathered up what remained of his courage and decided to try, carefully, to get his attention again. Weak from days without food or water, O'Keen had to use the last of his remaining energy to swim towards the diver. He still could not get his attention, so he reached out and tapped him on the back of the neck. The diver turned around in horror. O'Keen reached out his hand towards him, but it was so swollen from days in the water that it barely looked like a hand anymore. Once the diver spotted O'Keen's hand reaching out, he turned to his microphone, reporting to the rescue ship above. But then he realized how very wrong he was. As the diver approached to touch the dead hand, it touched him back. When he brought his hand close to me, I pulled on his hand, O'Keen said. You can hear the amazed reaction of the rescue team from the live video footage. "He's alive! He's alive!" they exclaimed in shock. Once the search team had realized that they had found a survivor, they were truly rejoicing in this unprecedented miracle. Of course, once the shock had worn off, and they realized that they had found someone impossibly alive in the depths of the ocean, emotions quickly turned to joy and amazement. Even though he had now been discovered, there was still a way to go before O'Keen could really be safe. The rescue team was worried that the excitement of being rescued would cause him to panic and hyperventilate. They weren't just concerned about his feelings, but because he had been in such a nitrogen-high environment, it was likely that he had absorbed potentially lethal amounts. Raising your heart rate while in this state is incredibly dangerous and can be fatal. So for the rescue team, keeping O'Keen calm was literally a matter of life or death. Fortunately, the rescue team, both under the water and above in the search panel, were incredible at keeping O'Keen calm and positive, and talked him through the rescue process. The diver's video footage is incredibly emotional, showing the team leader talking calmly and kindly to O'Keen, putting him at ease even though he himself was also in a huge amount of shock. The leader chatted to O'Keen, asked him his name, and reassured him he would be fine now. After realizing that he was alive, the team gave him some hot water. O'Keen felt sure that he knew why. Having spent so much time in the pressurized container, the cook's heart had slowly filled with gas, meaning that it was no longer able to cope with the air conditions above the water. The return of O'Keen to the surface and outside world had to be done in several separate, careful stages. First, the rescue team strapped him into diving equipment, including a mask to help him breathe underwater. Then they led him through the water into a diving bell. The diving bell returned this miraculous man to the surface, but he had to go immediately into a decompression chamber. O'Keen spent 2 days in the chamber, where his heart eventually returned to normal levels. Soon enough, the miraculous survival and rescue story of Harrison O'Keen spread around the world. Readers and experts across the globe were in equal parts astonished and inspired by the unprecedented miracle. There are several reasons that could explain how Harrison O'Keen's miracle occurred. Bangor Daily News hypothesized that it was the chemical makeup of the water that he was partially submerged in. The water could have helped absorb the otherwise potentially dangerous levels of nitrogen and carbon dioxide that arise in a concealed space over a long period of time. It is ironic that it was the water in the air pocket, while also a great danger as it slowly trickled in, could have also potentially saved O'Keen's life. Another reason for O'Keen's survival could have simply been a case of being in the right place at the right time. Of course, at the time the boat upturned, O'Keen was in the bathroom, while everyone else was locked up in their cabins. Securely locking each cabin is standard practice for sailors in these sorts of waters, in case of attacks from pirates. Had O'Keen been locked in his cabin too, he would have been swept out of the boat to his death like his fellow crew members. However, throughout his miracle recovery, O'Keen had held on to the hope that some of his colleagues might have also survived. Despite the horrific sounds he had heard, he had desperately hoped he'd been wrong. The rescue team didn't want to tell him straight away, as they needed to keep him calm until his heart had fully recovered. But eventually they realized that he was strong enough to know the truth. They had to break to him the sad news about the fate of his colleagues. It is a mark of Harrison O'Keen's humility and selflessness that even having been rescued himself against all odds, he shed a tear for the 11 men on board that tugboat who lost their lives that day. "They told me all the others had died, and I cried," he said. "I thought I was the only one who had been trapped in the boat." However, as time went on, O'Keen managed to put his grief for his colleagues behind him and focus on his own recovery and reflecting on the miracle he had received. O'Keen has spoken openly about the strength he found in his religious faith while trapped down in the depths of the ocean. In dire straits with no sign of rescue, no sustenance, and danger and horrors all around him, it is amazing that he kept his belief throughout it all. O'Keen revealed that during his time down on the seabed, he made a pact with God for his survival. He said to AP, "When I was under the water, I told God, if you rescue me, I will never go back to the sea again, never." O'Keen today is a healthy, happy, and overwhelmingly grateful young man. To this day, he still works as a cook, but, true to his heavenly pact, he has never set foot back on the water and maintains he never will. Though he is now fully recovered and looking forward to the future, his wife revealed he is still haunted by memories of those fateful days. When he is sleeping, he has that shock, Akpavona O'Keen said to NY Daily News. He will just wake up in the night saying, "Honey, see, the bed is sinking, we are in the sea." O'Keen admits he still thinks about those dark times, but he is grateful every day for his miraculous rescue. For Harrison O'Keen, he has an unwavering source of inner strength, his religious beliefs. "I don't know what stopped the water from filling that room," he said to Reuters. "I was calling on God. He did it. It was a miracle." The miracle of O'Keen's rescue and the strength of his faith in overwhelming darkness is an inspiration to us all.